Hey sports fans, this is Lily King. Make sure you tune into Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Thanks a lot for taking us along wherever you're going, whatever you're doing. We appreciate you taking Indiana Sports Beat along for the ride as always. Jim Coyle with you, and we are so fortunate to be joined by one of my all-time favorites, Tom Coverdale, former Indiana basketball player. Tom, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
Can't complain. Doesn't do any good. Nobody wants to listen to it, but I'm glad we've got you here because they certainly want to listen to you. I know you're still working. Last time we talked, you were working with AAA. Who's your AAA? Taking care of the people on the roads. How's that going?
It's going well. Yeah, I'm in the insurance department there, director of sales, and living on the north side of Indy, and everything's going really well.
So we can keep track of. Now, you able to follow a lot of college basketball action with that, or I know you got a family now, and a lot of things that keep a guy busy now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially around tournament time, I think you're just like anybody else, but definitely follow Indiana every single game and keep up with them. Don't get down to Bloomington as much as I'd like you said, with a family and twins that are 2 years old. That definitely keeps me busy. So by the time they go to bed, my couch and watching it on TV sounds a lot better.
Absolutely. It sounds a lot better to a lot of people, especially this last season. Things didn't go as great as a lot of people would like to have seen. Of course, they had a 12-game losing streak. But right now, the big thing is the recruiting, man. And I know that the recruiting today is a lot different than when you were taking part of that. You didn't have the social media aspect. I mean, today you got people making announcements on TV or on recordings on social media. Back then, you didn't even have an announcement. Did you even have an announcement when you were recruited?
No, I basically talked to Coach Knight on the phone, and then they contacted a couple local papers and the Indianapolis Star and stuff like that, and it came out in the paper. So, yeah, a lot different recruiting world than when I was, coming up through high school, which, I think it makes it a lot harder just from it makes it so the kids can switch a lot more, if that makes sense. I mean, when we were growing up, we kind of knew the schools we want. We got to know the coaches and really didn't have fan interaction. So it was, I want to go to this school because I love Indiana, instead of getting into all the hype of social media and that aspect of things.
Yeah, and like it's talking about the recruiting, how it's changed so much, but not only for those things, but now you've got all the other people that are involved with the AAU, and everybody's got a handler and this and that. How can that go any way but bad when you have that many people involved in something like that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think that the biggest thing that has changed from when I was growing up to now is the AAU scene. And just to show the biggest, change is, I think a lot of the high school coaches in Indiana, after coaching college ball for 6 years and being in the South, I think they're second to none, and would put them up with any coaches in the state. But a lot of the AAU coaches, after being around it, don't have the best interest of the kids. So it's hard to gauge who to listen to. But when I was growing up, my AAU coach was J.R. Holmes, who's the all-time winningest coach at Bloomington South and another high school coach. So I think the biggest difference is you're getting we were getting consistent fundamental coaching year-round. When you talk about my high school coach and Dave McCall and then going straight to J.R. Holmes, it's two of the best that the state's ever seen. So that was definitely a reason why I was able to be so successful. And nowadays it seems like, I think there are some great AAU programs and some great AAU coaches and people, but for the most part, it is people's second job that they're doing, and it's really gone downhill a little bit.
Talking with former Hoosier great Tom Coverdale. And not only that, Tom, but now you've got so many people involved, and not all of them, not only do they have they don't have the kids' best interest in heart, but they have their own interest is all that they care about, and they can be persuaded to do things that are not exactly on the up and up.
Yeah, that's true. I think that just goes into this day and age. You got so many people that can access these kids so quickly, where it wasn't that way back in the day. And that's one of the negatives, I think, of social media and all the access that Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff gives you to these actual kids at such a young age. They're exposed to it probably starting in 8th grade freshman year. So I think the kids start to get used to it and think that's a big part of what's going to make them successful. And it kind of, for some kids, can take away from what's most important, and that's, working hard and going to the right school that's best for them.
And then not only that, with the advent of social media and all that stuff, and sometimes, I don't know that the kids realize it, but there's a lot more pressure on these kids before they ever even get to college, much less once they're in college.
Yeah, I agree with everything you can access on the internet. When we were coming up, a lot of Indiana fans, for the most part, probably didn't see a lot of us and my whole recruiting class, especially the out-of-state kids, play until it was in person. So you don't have those expectations until you actually get there. Now, there are some exceptions, where, everybody traveled around and saw, like, the Damon Baileys and Steve Alfords and stuff like that, but that was kind of hype that was warranted, where with the access and videos and all that kind of stuff that comes out, I think it intensifies their names and expectations before they even get to college.
And when people talk about Indiana, they say, man, I wish we had guys like they used to have. They talk about the Michael Lewises and the Dane Fife, but they always mention Tom Coverdale because you have cemented yourself in the lore of Hoosier fans with not just for one game, but your play overall. But back when the great game against Duke, when you were injured and you guys fought through all that. But what do you use from that for yourself to carry through life? Because that was a great moment, not just for you, for the team, but it's something that people can carry through as a life lesson.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you learn that you take into the world is two different things. One is just how to fight through adversity, because that team had gone so far. We were all there for the most part when Coach Knight got fired, and really came together. And then at the beginning of that Final Four season, we started out the year 7-5, and really it was a crossroads where it could have went really downhill, or we could have all come together. And so that whole year we were fighting through adversity and trying to overcome that. And then the second thing is just how close the team was, and how big of a teamwork and everybody kind of heading in the right direction is important to a team if you want to overachieve. And what I mean by that is you're going to have a lot of teams and in situations where you're so talented you can overcome not being a cohesive unit. But when you were us, we had one NBA player on the whole team, and the rest of us were just really good college players. You have to have togetherness and fight through adversity to go through that. So those are really the two attributes I learned, especially from athletics my whole life, that I try to take with me every single day.
And I'll tell you, I used to be able to be a fan and things, and that was a time where I was actually just a fan. I remember being at that game in Lexington. It was a pretty incredible time for Indiana. But what is something that maybe people don't know about Coach Davis that he may have been going through at that time with that team?
I don't really know about at the time, but I think the thing that people don't realize is how great of a basketball mind he was from an offensive standpoint. And what I mean by that is the basketball IQ of that team, I think, is what set us apart. We had probably over 100 to 130 sets that we could go to at any time, and I think everybody on the team knew exactly where to be and what to do on every set, because we did it over and over and over in practice. And at the end of practice, he would just see certain things and think of a play in his mind and pull the starters over and say, hey, let's try this, and just draw it up on the board randomly. And if it worked in practice, we would implement it into the rotation. Now, I don't think you can do that with every team. You got to have, 5 guys on the floor that can react and just play and know where to be on all plays. But as far as putting players in certain situations to make them successful, that was something that he was really, really good at.
Talking with former Hoosier great Tom Coverdale. Yeah, Coach Davis didn't get a lot of credit, but he had the unenviable task of not only following a legend, but following the legend. He followed Bob Knight, and it followed him at a time where is obviously very tumultuous. I don't know that anybody in any circumstance could have survived that, but someone who had really little coaching experience as he did, and not being an IU person, he probably had just never had a chance to succeed in that role, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it was definitely tough, but I think another thing that he did really well in the beginning part is just delegate really well when you have, the experience of, a John Treelor on staff who really took control and handled the defense and was, when you're inheriting a situation or a program like that, you can't do it all on your own, especially as a first-time head coach, and he did a good job of understanding that and kind of playing to his strengths and playing off the strengths of his assistant coaches.
And I know people probably don't realize, or they may think otherwise, but that's something that you probably don't think about every day, where a lot of people do look back on those great games, those great times. But how often do you actually, that games like that come to mind for you?
I would say it's more around tournament time. I've spoken on this before to where it's more of, all through March, you think of all the good times and the things that we got to experience. But then also, every time I watch a championship game, it kind of brings up bad memories. Not really bad because you got a chance to play in it, but I always think about, the last 8 minutes of the championship game where we take the lead with 8 minutes to go, and then it's what could we have done to actually win that game and win a national championship. So, all through March, you think about all the good memories and the things you got to experience, but it's really hard watching a team celebrate winning a championship at the college level when you got that close.
I say it all the time, the things that I've done, that I've competed in, I remember the losses so much more vividly than the wins, and the losses hurt way more than the wins felt good.
Exactly, and you're always, because it's stuff that you feel like you could have controlled, So it's, you always look back and say, what if? I think the good thing from our team is, I tell people, you don't want to look back and say what if as far as your effort, and I think our team definitely doesn't do that. It's just individual plays you feel like, shots you could have hit or plays you could have made.
And a lot of people talk about kids today that they're not like they used to be. I talked about you and Dane Fife and Michael Lewis and these guys that were just tough players. You could tell they were tough on the floor. They played tough, and no matter what, like you fighting through injuries. And then you look at last year's team. A lot of people talked about this team played without any emotion, and they didn't seem like they they were almost robotic. Have kids changed, or was that just kind of an anomaly?
I think, kids have definitely changed a little bit, but I think it goes back to, how the coaching they get at a young age, to where it's, a lot of AAU balls just kind of throw the ball out and play, if that makes sense. And I think that's changed things a lot.
Yeah, the game has definitely changed the way it's played now. And then this Indiana team currently, you've got Trace Jackson Davis coming in, Armand Franklin. They had kind of gotten away with being able to recruit these Indiana kids at the end of the Tom Crean era, and Archie Miller's trying to turn that back around. And he's somewhat done a good job with that as he continues to try to add to his roster. How important do you think that is for a team, for Indiana, to have those Indiana high schoolers on their team?
I think it's very important because I think not that it means more to Indiana kids, but they kind of grow up knowing about Indiana. It may mean a little bit more to them to have that jersey on, and that name on their chest. Now, there's obviously been guys through the years that it means so much to play here from out of state, but I think getting those in-state kids like they're getting is definitely going to help moving forward and continues that snowball effect of getting players like this to continue to get better and recruiting the state.
Agreed. Tom Coverdale, I cannot thank you enough for joining us. We appreciate it. Look forward to doing it again, maybe when we get closer to basketball season, but I hope everything's going well, and congratulations. Hope the Twins keep having fun.
All right. Well, I appreciate you having me, and you have a great day.
Hey, thanks for listening to the rebroadcast from today's edition of Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle, the only daily show dedicated to Indiana University athletics. You can catch us live each weekday on IndianaSportsBeat.com, TheDailyHoosier.com, GrowingTruth.com, or go to Spreaker.com for live notifications. Yeah, that's Speaker with an R, SPREAKER.com. You can also catch the entire show any place you listen to a podcast, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, etc. You can find and follow the show on Facebook or follow me on Twitter at Jim Coyle ISB for complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers. Thanks again. I hope you have a great day. I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.